Okay, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I know for many of you, you're in the middle of a busy work day, so really appreciate the effort to make it to this webinar. This is Demystifying the Real Estate Closing Process. I'm Sean McKay with American IRA, and today we have the great privilege of Mr. Clinton Chandler with Hunter Chandler Law Firm joining us today. Clinton, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Hopefully we can dive into some of the I guess maybe unknowns about real estate closings, and something that we do obviously very regularly, and provide some helpful information for anyone looking to invest, or even for primary residences, refinances. So many different ways that we can be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Clinton just touched on there, certainly American IRA is a self-directed IRA or 401k firm. And so we're looking to help those of you that are interested in investing your retirement accounts and assets such as real estate. But ultimately, I asked Clinton to join us today because certainly first and foremost, he's a fantastic attorney. He's been doing closings for my wife and I for, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years now, and does a great job. He's also set up some entities for us. So really knowledgeable attorney, and certainly someone you should consider adding to your team if you're doing real estate transactions, especially in the greater Charlotte area. And I believe Clinton's also licensed in South Carolina as well. But really, this isn't so much a self-directed per se presentation. Hopefully, it's just a general value add, especially for those of you who may not have done a lot of real estate closings to this point. It can seem a bit intimidating. And so, again, we just wanted to give you some great resources as to who you need on your team as you're kind of starting your journey in real estate investing, or as Clinton said, even maybe buying a primary residence as well. Certainly, they do all sorts of real estate closings. So just a bit of housekeeping here. We do have a questions box on the tab. And so certainly feel free to type in any questions throughout the presentation. Realistically, we probably won't get to the questions until after the presentation is done and kind of set up for the Q&A session at the end. But certainly feel free to type those in as we go along. And so I'll do the first few minutes. We have a lot of non-clients on this webinar, which is certainly exciting. So we'll just kind of talk about the fundamentals of self-directed retirement accounts. And then I'll turn it over to Clinton so he can educate us on the legalities and the flow of the process of making any sort of real estate transaction come through there. So this will be great. And again, it's always good when we have guest speakers who can add a lot of value to the conversation. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with self-directed accounts, I think it's really important that we start with what we're currently doing for many of us with our IRAs and 401ks if we're not self-directing. And essentially, many of us are familiar with the bank products that are out there, such as CDs and money markets, and the investment vehicles such as stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And the reality is that most of us are investing our IRAs and 401ks in these products. And certainly, I think that a lot of people can be very successful, and many people have been very successful with those sorts of tools in their investment life. I think ultimately, as investors, it's important to understand why we're making the investments that we're making. If you're the type of individual that's going to do the research, read the annual reports, and really pore over the information so that you can be an informed stock market investor, then that's fantastic. And as I said, many people can be successful with that. Ultimately, though, we find that there are a lot of people that have skill sets and knowledge that falls outside of the realm of stock market investing with stocks and mutual funds. And so ultimately, that's where we shine as a firm at American IRA, is making you aware of some other opportunities that are available to you with your retirement dollars. So when we talk about a self-directed account, I really break it down into two components. The first is that, as the name indicates, you are directing these accounts. These are self-directed accounts, meaning that you as the account holder are making the decisions for your portfolio. So this is different than having this part of your portfolio with a financial advisor, for example, who may sit down with you and go through an analysis of what you're trying to accomplish and then suggest some investment products, again, such as stocks, bonds, and mutual funds for you to consider investing in. Again, nothing against that process and that way of investing, but ultimately there's this additional world of self-direction where you can make your own decisions. So as you make your own decisions, you then start to look at what's available to you. And there's a lot of great firms out there, the Schwabs, the Vanguards of the world, where you can go to those firms and pick your own stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And I would consider that a semi-self-directed account, meaning that you're making the decisions. However, you have kind of a limited realm of investments that you can choose from. So with a truly self-directed account, not only can you still invest in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds with a firm like American IRA, but you can also invest in what we consider alternative assets as well. So as we mentioned, certainly today's basic premise is that we're talking about real estate investments. And again, Clinton and his team can handle just your typical real estate investments where you as an individual are going to buy either your personal residence or purchase rental properties owned by yourself or LLCs, but also your retirement account can purchase rental properties or do fix and flip deals or be the bank for other investors to make loans to them so that they can buy rental properties and do fix and flips, strategies such as that. We're also seeing a lot of clients are investing in private placements. So essentially, we're all familiar with publicly traded companies such as IBM or Apple or Google, but there's also opportunities to invest in privately held companies as well. Maybe there's a startup bank in your community, maybe somebody starting a restaurant. You can actually use your retirement account to invest in those opportunities as well. So at American IRA, we're considered the third-party administrator for your self-directed account. And really what that means is that we do the record keeping and the reporting for your retirement account that we administer. And we're what's considered a fully integrated firm, meaning that the principal for American IRA, Mr. Jim Hitt, is also the principal of our trust company, New Vision Trust Company, which is our custodian. And so really the benefit of that to the clients is that unfortunately in the self-directed arena, most companies are just simply administrators that do not have this full integration. And the challenge with that is that they can go out of business very quickly if their custodian, the company that watches over that administrator, says, you know what, we're not interested in being your custodian any longer. Sometimes you have a very short fuse to find a new custodian. So again, our principal, Jim Hitt, brilliant as always, decided that the best way to make sure that we could stabilize the future of this company is to make sure that we were fully integrated. And to be quite frank, that is a grueling process that he went through with senior team members to make sure that he could put that together. And frankly, it actually took a few years for that to transpire. So not an easy process, but certainly, again, really protecting the future of American IRA. Now, we're never going to be Bank of America in terms of the size of our firm. As I said, we provide kind of a niche service for these alternative assets such as real estate and precious metals. So ultimately, we're going to be a firm that has been very fortunate to grow each year, but it's kind of a controlled growth pattern because we want to make sure that the people that are coming in to use our service really can use it and it's valuable to them. So you're not going to have a single business day where we have 6,000 individuals open retirement accounts with us. Now, we do have about 400 million in assets under administration. So in the self-directed arena, we're actually becoming one of the larger firms out there. So we're certainly not a small player in the space. And again, I could spend all day on this, but when you look at American IRA compared to competitors in the self-directed space, I think there's a few things that you should just be cognizant of. And the first is that when you look at our fees, they're really revolutionary in the self-directed space. What you find with most self-directed providers is that they're going to charge you a larger annual fee as your account balance grows. So when you have a $100,000 account, you pay much less than when you have a $200,000 or $300,000 account. So our premise at American IRA is, quite frankly, that's not really fair, because we're not making suggestions to you as to what you should be investing in. Again, we're just a neutral third-party record keeper. So ultimately, if you do a great job and you grow your account with good team members around you, from CPAs to attorneys, etc., then you should really benefit from the upside of that account. So again, we have a set flat annual fee. For account balances $7,500 and over, it's simply $285 a year for the annual fee. Account balances less than that is $165 a year. Now, the other interesting thing about our fee structure is that we actually don't charge you that annual fee on IRAs until you make that first investment. And this is a way to encourage you to start that relationship with us, get the account opened and funded, so that when you do find that opportunity, ultimately you're ready to roll and you can move forward with making that investment. And also, when you look at our firm, we've really enjoyed longevity and continuity amongst our base of employees. I've been with the firm for over 10 years now. Our operations manager has been with us for almost 9 years. And really, we have a lot of senior team members that have been with us for many, many years. So I'd like to think that we're experts in our field and that we can provide a lot of value to you as you're going through your self-directed investments. Now, ultimately, when you think about a self-directed account, I want you to just simply be aware that the retirement account itself is not changing forms typically. If you have an IRA, whether it's a Roth or a traditional with your current firm, you're going to have that same Roth or traditional IRA with us at American IRA. And so ultimately, the only thing that's changing with these accounts is just a wider array of investment options that are available to you. The one time where it will typically change forms is if you have an old employer-sponsored plan, such as a 401k, a 403b, or a thrift savings plan. Those will typically roll over into another pre-taxed account, such as a traditional IRA. And certainly we're happy to speak with you individually about your situation. So really keep in mind, most of the time they stay in their same form. And also, this is not an all or nothing proposition. If you have, let's say, a $100,000 retirement account and you have use for moving, let's say, $30,000 over to us at American IRA for a particular opportunity, then you can just simply move that $30,000. You don't have to move your entire balance over to us at American IRA. Now, as we look at the investment options, really, interestingly enough, the way the IRS code is written is it tells us what we cannot invest in, which is collectibles and life insurance policies. So as you extrapolate that reality, any type of physical real estate can be acquired by your IRA or 401k with us, whether it's raw land, condos, townhouses, single-family houses, commercial buildings, apartment, industrial buildings. These can be directly owned by your retirement account. And also the aspect of being a lender for other investors, typically in the form of a deed of trust or a mortgage, depending upon the state you're in. So North Carolina, we are a deed of trust state, and South Carolina is a mortgage state. And tax liens and tax deeds, certainly I do a webinar where we really focus on that, so I want to make sure we can get to Clinton with plenty of time. But also keeping in mind that retirement accounts can just simply own a portion of an asset. And sometimes that's in the form of the retirement account becoming a member of a newly formed or a single purpose LLC. And that LLC then goes on to make the investment into the single family house or the apartment building or the new startup business, whatever the strategy may be there. So a lot of opportunities available with your IRAs and 401ks. And certainly as we look at the real estate concept that Clinton's going to educate us on today, As long as it is for investment purposes, you can typically use your retirement account to execute that strategy. So certainly rental properties and fix and flip deals are something that we see a good bit of. And for those of you that are more advanced investors and you're investing in off-market opportunities, such as wholesaling and options, that can be done inside your account as well. And joint ventures is really just a fancy way of saying a partnering deal. So your IRA might own 30% of a house, and other individuals or companies or retirement accounts might own the other 70%. So that's an interesting way to get into a bigger deal there. And private lending is, again, just another way of saying hard money lending or being the bank many times for other investors. And again, something we touch on in future webinars is the idea of actually purchasing a property with retirement dollars that will be temporarily many times used as a vacation rental, but the end goal is actually for the account holder and perhaps their family to be able to utilize that property down the road in their retirement years. And so there's some moving parts associated with that. But again, the basic premise is that clients will find that condo at the beach or the house on the lake or in the mountains, and they'll want to actually utilize that property in their retirement years. And there are some ways you can accomplish that. So just a little bit of food for thought there. And as you're thinking about these real estate deals, to me, I break it down into 3 basic categories. Most typically, we see clients just simply use their retirement account as the sole owner of the asset. Let's say it's a rental property, and the IRA or 401k is going to pay cash and end up owning that single-family rental house, for example. There's also option 2, where the IRA is again going to be doing a joint venture deal or a partnering deal, and the IRA is going to partner with an individual or a retirement account or a company, and many times that partnership will be a cash partnership, and then it will go on to acquire that property. And then the third concept is where a retirement account, IRA or 401k, is actually going to use leverage. It's going to borrow money to make the investment into that rental property or the fix and flip, whatever it may be. So just as many of us are used to getting mortgages to buy a rental property in our personal name or our LLC, there is a strategy for that with the retirement account. Keeping in mind it's a very particular type of debt called a non-recourse loan, where essentially you as the account holder cannot personally guarantee the debt that you're getting. So it can be from a bank or an individual that's lending you money, or also, again, for those of you that work off-market real estate deals, if the seller is willing to finance the property to, in this case, your retirement account, it can hold a mortgage, the seller, and then your retirement account can just simply put whatever down payment is negotiated, and it can be the owner of the property. And again, Clinton is the expert on this, but to my understanding in North Carolina, if it is seller financed debt that is being created with the owner, I do believe that is by definition going to be a non-recourse loan. And Clinton, please feel free to correct me there. But ultimately, just want to give you some food for thought that there are a few different strategies that you can employ. Okay, so now we're on to the main event. Again, Clinton Chandler, attorney with Hunter Chandler Law Group. Clinton, are you there, bud?
Yes, thanks. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks again for having me. And like Sean said, he asked me to come on, and these things obviously apply in the situations that he was just referring to, utilizing the IRA, the self-directed IRA accounts for purposes of purchasing real estate. I've broken this down fairly simply, and it'll cross kind of all spectrums of whether that's for personal rental properties, investments that don't involve your self-directed IRA accounts. They'll also apply in those cases, and I'll make a couple references to that. So basically, we are going to kind of go through the typical process to start here. And let's let's see if I can get this to, there we go. So the basic sequence of events kind of from two perspectives. On the buyer side, or if you're purchasing or going into one of these ventures, obviously there's things that happen prior to what we do and are involved in. Every now and again, we do have folks that would like some help on the contract piece. As attorneys in North Carolina and South Carolina, we have access to the same forms that your real estate agents have. So if they're involved, of course, that's wonderful. We work with regularly a lot of real estate agents, and by no means do we intend to step on anyone's toes, but certainly things are done without real estate agents involved. We can provide those forms, and I don't think it would be an incorrect assumption for me to assume that most of you all are probably capable of filling in the blanks on these forms that we have to create a real estate contract. But so keep going down the buyer side there. We're gonna execute a contract. We're gonna contact closing attorney to provide the contract and provide them any additional information. There's due diligence that you need to do typically on those things. In some investment opportunities, properties are sold as is. Certainly that's, I guess, advertised that way if it's going to be that way. And I guess the default really is that the seller doesn't have to, repair anything or do anything. If they don't want to, if they don't want to work with you on that, and then it's a determination whether you proceed based on the value that you're contracted to purchase for, and the anticipation for what the cost would be for you to fix those things after the fact. The due diligence period obviously ends, and then we proceed to closing. From the attorney's perspective, we're going to receive your contract and we're going to get started then. I think that Sean kind of opened this up for me. I'm happy to take any calls and answer any questions. Certainly we try and make sure that we are helpful in that regard prior to receiving your contract and getting an engagement letter to provide the services to you all. But open here all the time for questions and kind of walking through the process. But we would then take the contract and we would provide seller and buyer information sheets that can be filled out in return for the information that we really need to kind of pull this all together at the end. We would begin a title search and then coordinate with the lender if that's applicable. I think that, like I said, this is sort of basics, but in the event that you are utilizing a self-directed account for a loan or for the purchase, we would obviously be coordinating with American IRA, and I think that would also be something that would be entered here in lieu of lender coordination. So some coordination back and forth, obviously with buyer and seller, but also lender or entities if applicable. We would prepare settlement statement and documents, and then we would get to closing. So obviously throughout the process, coordinating with everyone, communicating any issues that come up on title as soon as we have that stuff back, and then and that's kind of the process there in a nutshell. We're going to walk through some of the time frames here, realistic time frames and closings in North and South Carolina. So contract dates, which you would use to fill in those blanks for when you want to close, when you want to have some due diligence, and obviously those contracts are not the same, but a due diligence approximately 1 to 6 weeks, and that's a pretty broad range for residential, and from anywhere from 4 weeks to 6 months on a commercial, sometimes over a year, and we're talking about very large and extensive commercial contracts that have that much due diligence. But certainly depending on how much you want to bite off, then you may want to know that can happen. Settlement date approximately 1 to 2 weeks after the end of due diligence for residential, and approximately 2 weeks, 1 month or more after the end of due diligence for commercial. So again, that's kind of thinking as far along as we can in regards to commercial, thinking about very large projects that would require a buyer to go out and maybe have someone handle rezoning for whatever the purpose they want to use a raw piece of land for. There's potentially getting permits and a lot of things that can take a lot of time, because they are I don't mean it in a bad way, but they are having to go through the government, and those things can be quite long and take quite a bit of time. So as far as title search goes, title search timeframes would also be relative to contract dates, particularly due diligence. A lot of people think that due diligence would include the title search, and certainly it can. If a title search comes back with a title issue, the seller may be in breach, which really, if that's after the due diligence date, would make the seller in breach of the contract, and it wouldn't really affect or be affected by the due diligence date having been expired. But title search timeframes, about 5 to 10 business days from receiving the contract, and that's residential. A little bit longer in South Carolina, and there's a reference to tacking there. But I guess in more simpler terms, South Carolina typically requires a full search, 30-year search. It's a bit more of a search for the abstractors or attorneys handling those, and we're going to have a little more time needed to complete that. Sometimes a full search is required in North Carolina, so of course we have 10 business days in there. I don't see too many that are much longer than that, particularly on residential. Commercial may be a little longer as well, in regards to the fact that there's a lot more documentation that's pulled for review. Most of your residential documentation is fairly standard form, standard utility and utility easements and covenants and covenants, conditions, and restrictions for HOAs, if that's applicable. Title issues may also push back the time frame in regards to having clear title. If there's an issue that arises, we usually communicate that and communicate what is needed for the seller to correct that. Typically, it's not built into our services to go correct that for them. But on a personal note, from our firm, we are very helpful in regards to kind of guiding a seller through those things in order to facilitate a closing for both parties. So that's kind of our approach to that. You may get an attorney's office that requests a seller to get their own representation or to go handle all the matters themselves, and may not be very helpful in that regard, just for your information. Other matters such as properties and estates do also increase time frame. Again, more searching is involved. That would be verifying that this person has an estate filed, pulling copies of the estate so that we can verify that the proper things were handled in the estate that would allow us to give an opinion that there is clear title. So one of the biggest, biggest things that we hear, and I think that it's an assumption by many people, is that a cash closing is going to be faster. Well, the title search has to be done for a cash closing to verify there's clear title, just like it does for any loan purchase or investment purchase with your self-directed IRA. So cash does not make searches faster. Cash is very nice when we get to settlement. It makes things easier and more convenient in regards to signing documents. However, there's still a title search, and there's still some processes that need to be gone through, and those things take the same amount of time. So cash is going to be, and we'll see in the next slide, as we discussed, or coming up, I guess, not this slide, in the next slide, as we discuss cost. there is some relative discount in regards to cash for cost, and that being that there's a little less coordination with the lender than it would be for a loan closing. So there's a little less time involved in the file, and therefore, as we operate on flat fees, our flat fee for cash is going to be a little bit less. But continuing on the realistic time frames for real estate closings, the survey time frame, as part of due diligence, we obviously, and as an attorney, we always recommend getting a survey, an updated survey. You're going to look at it approximately 5 or 10 business days from the order. And from the attorney's office perspective, some attorney's offices like mine do order surveys for folks, and that would be something you could request as part of the buyer information sheet. When you get that back, when we receive that request in the buyer information sheet to order a survey for you, then it would be about 5 or 10 business days from that time. Inspection timeframes. A lot of times the real estate agents are helping you with that and handling that. When we handle a contract that doesn't have agents involved, we will recommend you get an inspection, home inspection, and we can help answer some questions on that. But typically you're ordering that, and if you order that from one of the, I always suggest a local inspector, you're going to look at approximately them scheduling an inspection for about 5 or 10 business days after you request that they come out and inspect the property for you. Sometimes they can be quicker than that, but once you get it under contract, we always suggest going ahead and getting an inspection ordered from the inspection company, and then obviously their availability is going to determine when they can get out, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Of course, that would be done preferably in the due diligence period, so that you can have time to decide whether or not you're going to proceed. Also, it should be hopefully completed well before the end of due diligence. They do take a couple days to get you a report typically, and you're going to want that report so you can determine what you may feel like is necessary in regards to repairs. You obviously have to request those repairs in writing of the seller, and then the seller would agree to those, and they need time to accept or deny that before your due diligence ends. So the sooner the better on that. Okay, so obviously time frames in general are variable with many factors, including the differences in process for North and South Carolina. I'll kind of just reiterate that South Carolina typically requires a little bit more of time on a title search, and therefore that can I guess set us up to need a little different time frame in regards to contract dates and the process altogether. The cooperation with the attorney's office in information gathering and providing executed contract in a timely fashion is going to be the key to having things expedited as quickly as possible. So, like I said, some people aren't in a hurry. Others are. The ones that tend to be in the biggest hurry are sometimes the least cooperative in regards to getting things back. And really, there's only so much that we can do without everyone's help. So sometimes those are hurdles that we have to get over. And just as a general information piece there, if you're working with someone that that's selling you this real estate that didn't seem to be very helpful to you in regards to you getting a contract completed and negotiating the price and that sort of thing, you can kind of already plan to expect that they might not be so helpful with us, and that will kind of set expectations for what your time frame is going to be as far as getting things completed. So the cost that we can expect, there are obviously numerous fees: the title search and opinion fees, settlement fees, title insurance fees, recording fees, property taxes, and potential lender fees, depending on if there's a lender involved. So only certain of these fees are fees that we are charging you for closings, and they may be slightly different again, between North and South Carolina, but in general, and my fee sheet is the same across the board. Fees can be bundled or separate. And the one thing I will bring up that's not on the slide in regards to bundled fees, we try and bundle our fees so that they are clear and concise. They certainly are a fee that will include fees for a number of things. It's titled under one fee. We kind of roll fees in. We roll any sort of wiring and courier overnight fees all together so that you get a better feel for this is my total cost. So you're not having to go through and pick out what are the attorney's fees, and that's going to be cleaner and more concise. Separate fees make the attorney fee look really small, yet a number of the other fees that you'll see listed are going to be charged and collected by an attorney's office. So be careful with that. Be cautious when you're shopping around, or if you're looking for services in regards to closing attorneys. Most recently, most attorneys have moved to a more bundled type fee. A settlement fee and a title search and opinion is what we have, and those kind of make up our total fee. Again, fees will vary based on cash purchases, and they're going to be a little less for that because of the amount of time that file does not need in relation to coordinating with the lender. So the other thing I'll point out in regards to fees is one thing that Sean and I have discussed in the past. I've helped numerous people with IRA, self-directed IRA accounts and their investments. I do know that there are some other attorneys' offices around my area in Charlotte and other places that do charge extra fees for the coordination with American IRA. I've been fortunate enough to work with them, like he mentioned at the beginning, for a large number of years, and given that, it's made things a little easier and quicker for me, to the extent that I haven't really had any need or desire to charge any additional fees on that. So small plug, but certainly we have a lot of experience with American IRA, and I think that that helps us kind of combat those potential fees for extra time. So here you have total fees bundled are going to be approximately between $700 and $1,400. Kind of broken down there, a range for title search and title opinion, and then settlement fees $350 to $700. Again, sort of a range there, and some may be a little smaller, some may be a little larger. And they can be bundled in different ways. You can even get broken out a wire fee or a overnight fee and some different things. So be conscientious about the fees, but certainly it'll give you an idea of kind of what you're looking at. Our total fee for cash closing is $700. So that's the bottom line there on the total fees. You may be able to get the cash closing done for a little less than that, but generally speaking, that's kind of what you're looking at as far as fees go. Title insurance fees in South Carolina, we are an issuing agent for two title companies. We do issue title insurance policies. We are not allowed to do that in North Carolina. But in order for you to get an estimate on your fees, I do have a link here at the bottom of this slide. And just for your information, each state has a fixed rate issued by their insurance regulatory body. So South Carolina has a specific rate, and North Carolina has a specific rate that's set. Those rates don't change too often, but lenders do require their own title insurance policy, and not necessarily your hard money lenders like Sean was referring to. A loan policy is not always required in that regard, but if you're getting a loan from a normal lender, mortgage broker, bank, you're gonna have a requirement. As a borrower and a buyer, you would have that fee passed on to you. So the lenders require it, and that fee is part of the loan fees. So that being said, owner's policies do come with a discount, and that would be a simultaneous purchase discount. So if you are getting a loan and they're requiring you to pay for a lender's title insurance policy, you would get a simultaneous issued discount, which is going to make your owner's policy quite cheap. relatively speaking. So for cash, you're going to carry the brunt of it may be a little cheaper than the total of the lender and the owner's policy, but if you're just getting an owner's policy for a cash purchase, you're going to see a difference in that owner's policy cost. Obviously, these rates are charged at a set rate by the state, and the rate is the total premium is determined by the rate and the loan amount for a lender's policy and a purchase price or value for an owner's policy. So a loan policy covers a lender up to the amount that they are loaning out. So if the loan amount is $300,000, their policy would be for $300,000. For an owner's policy, it would be typically purchase price or value. So if there's a little bit higher value than maybe what you're paying, you may want to get a policy for a little more. You can do that. And for anyone that may be doing any type of construction, you may get an owner's policy for purchasing a lot. A lot may be worth $80,000. Your policy will be for that. After you construct, construct a house or do additions or do renovations, the value may be higher. You may want to increase your coverage, and you can always do that. We would just get a title update done and request that the title insurance provider issue an endorsement to increase your coverage. So always keep that in mind if you're doing any type of renovation, or particularly on a long-term rental that you plan to hold, or on a primary residence that you're going to do some construction and construct a new build or do some renovation, and your value is going to be increased because of that. Okay. The other fees are going to be minimal recording fees. South Carolina's cheaper in recording, of course, $10 for a deed to be recorded in South Carolina. Up to a total of maybe $150. Again, a lender involved, you're going to have a mortgage or deed of trust that has to be recorded. That's a much greater fee. I think that fee now is $64 in North Carolina for the mortgage deed of trust in North Carolina. And then you're going to have taxes prorated, and obviously that can change depending on when you're closing in the year. So earlier on, buyer's going to be responsible for more of the taxes, and will get less of a proration credit from the seller. And later in the year, they're going to get more of a credit and be responsible for the bill whenever it's due. As far as lender fees go, those are separate, and then of course those lenders are going to disclose any fees generally very early in the process. Usually, once you get under contract, they'll send you an initial now it's closing disclosure, and that's going to include all of their fees on there. But total fees, you're looking at between $800 and about $4,000. So lender's fees would be separate from that estimate, and of course the $4,000 is sort of a high bar there for total fees that are not lender fees. But if there's lender fees included, those would be separate. So the sellers will have their own fees, and I don't know, I didn't mention that at the onset, but this is all buyer related for you all who may be looking to purchase, whether that be investment or some sort of primary residence. So just for your knowledge, and sellers' fees obviously are a little cheaper. There's document preparation. They have to be able to provide a deed to transfer the property to the buyers, and some of those legal documents that we draft for them do have their own fees. Okay. So the last piece of my little presentation here is going to be current most successful trends in real estate. I'll go through the traditional first. Obviously, some of these things are going to overlap, I think, with what Sean had on his slide, in ways that you can utilize this with your self-directed IRA or 401k. So, but investment or rental properties, rehabs, flips, seller financing, assignments, and development. Obviously, we had a lot of developers that were unable to continue business in the downturn in the 2008 market. I think that's coming back around. There are a lot of builders, especially in the Charlotte area, that are looking for lots to build on. So I think most recently I had a regional builder that's a client of mine that purchased, I want to say, about 63 lots in one subdivision and 25 maybe in the other. And it was the same developer who developed both subdivisions, and I think we wired him about $4 million the day before Christmas. So it was a Merry Christmas for him, but like I said, there's a lot of risk in that, of course, but certainly a large reward, and some of that's really coming back. So could be here on the current, or maybe it should be current. Maybe not as many people are doing that as they should, maybe, that have the knowledge and wherewithal to do that. As far as current goes, we're seeing a lot of short-term rentals, and that would be a reference to like your Airbnb type rentals, and I've seen a lot of that in the news and in the things that I read daily as far as real estate goes. Many people who traditionally did long-term rentals as investment properties have kind of started working in the short-term rental market, even turning some long-term rentals and doing some rehab and turning them into short-term rentals to kind of maximize their profit. There are some, there's a couple different things, and I'll try and get those to Sean later, that maybe he can disperse those. But there's a couple ways to I think to look up and see if if the difference in the income would be worth potentially considering a short-term rental. But obviously that's kind of the new age thing with the technology and what Airbnb and VRBO have to offer. I'll skip past the self-directed IRA and come back to that, but multifamily and subdividing property is a big thing that we're seeing now too. A lot of the local builders that I work with have gone. You may have seen some on the market. They're doing these really high-end duplexes. We can do them so that they are subdividing the property. Therefore, the tenant or you'd be the owner. The owner on one half of that would own the actual land as well. And then obviously the dwelling would sit right on the dividing line of the property. So you're essentially maximizing for him, for the builders, maximizing a nice looking craftsman style home that actually has access on two sides and is sold as a whole separate piece of property to two different buyers. So we're seeing a lot of that, and that's something to look into and consider. I think that with the prices are going to be a little bit lower for that because they're obviously an attached property, attached to the other adjoining space by a common wall, if you will. But with a little bit lower price point, that's really good in the market that we're in now, because in Charlotte particularly, the home prices are probably at an all-time high or close to it. So we're seeing a lot of that. And then to go back and hit on what Sean had kind of hit on earlier, just briefly, loans for rehab and loans for investment purchases, whether that be in an LLC or in the name of your account, if you will, so that you're utilizing those retirement funds and making a return on those potentially greater than what you may have on your standard traditional investment, stocks, bonds, etc. And we worked very closely with a lot of the American IRA account holders on accomplishing those things over the last number of years. Certainly drafted the documentation for loans for rehab. We have, in particular, some very successful clients in regards to returns that have worked with investors that need money, even the small builders in our area that can use, I guess you'll call it hard money loan or a private loan, if you will. That kind of money, they're typically willing and understand they're going to pay a little bit higher interest rate on that, which obviously maximizes the self-directed account holder's return. And if they're good at what they do and they have their numbers straight, you can get a good idea of what you can make on a return on those things. So this is kind of a good way to talk about some of the basics and integrate them with the self-directed IRA and 401k accounts, and hopefully with investment-minded people, there may be some other opportunity to work with you guys outside of working potentially through those accounts. And I know Sean said we had some folks that that aren't account holders that were joining us. So my contact information is going to be at the end here, and certainly Sean can get you in touch with me. But I have a website, Facebook, Instagram. So feel free to reach out if you have any other questions, or you can go ahead and chat some. We may get to those at the end here. But thanks for your time, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Sean.
Awesome. Great information. Thanks a lot, Clinton. All right, perfect. So again, just to recap for those that are interested in exploring, let's say, a real estate purchase with the retirement account, we definitely ask that before you get too far along in signing around an offer to purchase or anything like that on a real estate deal, that you have your retirement account with us first opened and funded. And that way, again, you're ready to take action. And once you identify an asset to purchase, in this case, we'll say it's a piece of real estate. We'll have the contact information on the next slide. But basically, we ask that you contact our headquarters, which is in Asheville, North Carolina, and we'll have the number up there. If you want to talk about just kind of some general ideas around potentially purchasing real estate, we ask that you contact our transactions team. So when you call in, just simply ask for transactions to discuss a real estate purchase. But if you're actually looking to move forward with a specific deal, if you can speak with our transactions team. So I'm sorry. So client services, I might have jumped the gun there. So client services is for speaking about general aspects of a real estate purchase. Client services. If you want to move forward with a specific investment, please talk to transactions. So client services is kind of that front end, general discussions. And when you actually want to get the specific verbiage for how the contract will need to read for your IRA or 401k purchasing a property, please talk to our transactions team in our Asheville office as well. So Asheville is the headquarters. That's the hub where everything happens. And so ultimately the end result is that your retirement account owns the property directly. It's not you or your LLC, and then after closing somehow getting that property into your retirement account. The offer to purchase, the closing documents that you're going to work with Clinton and his team on, they're all going to state that it is your retirement account. And so we'll have some notes for this. We'll get everyone that attended our real estate instructions, which gives you, again, the specific verbiage for how the buyer will read. And again, if you are in this area and you choose to work with Clinton's team, as he mentioned, certainly they treat the clients well. And also, as he said, there's not additional fees because it's a self-directed transaction, which from the attorney's perspective, we see attorneys charge an extra $1,000 or $1,500 for that ability to work with the self-directed company, which is perhaps a bit much. So we really appreciate Clinton making it easy and cost-effective for clients to work with him and his firm. Again, so before we get into this, if anyone has questions, we'd love to dig into that. So certainly feel free to type in any questions that you have. Again, I'm Sean McKay with American IRA. My email is sean@americanira.com. Again, for general discussions, client services is going to be your best bet. Very knowledgeable team there, and they can work you through any kind of hypotheticals that you want to go through. And then our transactions team actually works you through the paperwork for the investment. And obviously they're corresponding with you as a client, as well as Clinton and his team, or whatever closing service. Some states it's attorneys, other states it's escrow offices that you work through for the investment. And again, Clinton, quite the rock star today. I appreciate it, buddy. Hunter and Chandler Law Group, Chandler at hlgplaw.com. And again, Clinton Chandler, he's a principal there. Their phone number is 704-849-8649. And so we'll see if we have any questions up here. Okay, great. So Clinton, how many years have you been doing real estate closings?
So we're a little over 5 years now. Pretty much full-time residential, commercial real estate, do some estate planning as well, and obviously, as you mentioned earlier, some business entity formations, so LLCs and corporations. Yeah, like I said, we're happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. Feel free to email those to me or give me a call. Spend a lot of my day answering those questions, and we like to be able to assist anyone we can. North and South Carolina, licensed here, and got a really good staff who's been around for longer than I have, certainly most of them, but very good paralegals. And usually I'm going to probably work directly on these IRA things. Like I said, experience from working on them early on in my career, and working with your staff, the language you were referencing and all of that makes them quite, not quite as cumbersome, I think, is certainly you're right. An additional fee may be worth it in some cases for the extra time, but for me, I don't feel like I spend a lot of extra time, pinning those things down with your staff. Worked with them for quite a while, for different investors, for different account holders that were doing different things, and made those things very easy, and that's part of the reason why I'm able to facilitate those types of closings without any big additional costs like that. But yeah, we love working with those folks, and certainly the investment stuff that we can facilitate really seems to work out really well, and so let me know if I can help. Happy to help.
Perfect. Yeah, actually, as I think about it, I initially was working with Kathy Hunter, another principal at the law group, and I always just assumed I was too much of a pain in the fanny, and she hooked me up with Clinton to do additional real estate closings. So I guess it's been about 5 years since I've had the opportunity to work with you. So another question we're getting is in regards to LLCs. So the question revolves around, Clinton, do you do multi-member LLCs? And we'll assume this is just outside retirement accounts, and you're just working with your traditional real estate investors.
Right. Yeah, we definitely do multi-member LLCs. Obviously, depending on the scenario, and we can work through that. There's some, I guess we would call it more of a simple, less complex operating agreement that we draft off of, as well as something that is a little more complex with classes of shares. So classes of membership interests, Class A, Class B. We can kind of separate that depending on how you want it to operate. And part of the setup that we do include an operating agreement that we work with you to set up. Whenever we do those, we will file the articles and kind of work with you all along the way on that. I think our typical LLC setup fee includes those two things, as well as obtaining a tax identification number for that business entity. That's going to be about $600, and that doesn't include your filing fee, but that's our end, and some more complex operating agreements, maybe a little more, but that's kind of the base price, and do that quite regularly, and like I said, be happy to help. We certainly will discuss with anyone who would like to discuss the benefits of those LLCs, and clearly the limited liability is the key, and that's going to be very huge in regards to your personal assets, including your primary residence when you're doing investments, and you have concerns in regards to issues that may arise on those properties that could jeopardize your personal assets. So very good thing to have. We can move those things along pretty quick too if a project comes up fast. Do some expedited filing and kind of drop some things to get you what you need quickly. So let us know if we can help with any business entity setup. We're happy to do that.
Perfect. Great. So the next question is, do you do closings for clients in Greensboro, North Carolina?
So for purchasers in Greensboro, we have the ability to handle that closing for you. There's obviously some limitations. We do mail away for loan closings. We'll do mail away packages. For cash closings, much simpler, much cleaner. For a purchase, there's only a handful of things and nothing that has to be notarized, so we don't need originals back. We would work with you on getting funds for the purchase. They have to be in our trust account. But as far as documentation goes, that's fairly simple. So on cash purchase, I would say absolutely, and I would say we absolutely will help on a loan purchase for someone in Greensboro. And typically, what we do on a mail away loan package is we're going to get those documents to you usually a day before in an overnight. You'll receive those and have to set up to have a notary notarize some of those signatures on those loan documents. We would provide a label for you to overnight those back to us the following day. So closing would occur on one day and disbursement would occur on the next. But and what I typically do on those as well is I'm going to set aside a time for us to be able to field your questions as you're going through the documents by phone. At this point in time, the electronic type closing hasn't quite made it to North Carolina, and South Carolina is usually one step behind on that stuff, but they're working towards that, which will make things a little easier. But for now, we handle quite a bit of buyer mail-away packages for convenience purposes. So happy to help for anyone in Greensboro, and if they would like to sit with an attorney in person, we can probably recommend someone that we would recommend an attorney's office up there that can help you with that closing if that's what it takes. So.
Great. And so really just to kind of wrap up, final point, it sounds like because you're licensed in North and South Carolina that you technically could handle a closing in really any part of those two states?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we do handle closings and have handled closings across both states. We're about as far away from Charlotte as you can get in either of those states. And once you cross into Georgia or Tennessee or Virginia, we can't help you in that regard. But we also kind of pride ourselves on being useful for finding someone that can help you, that's reliable, and either that we currently know or that we can get a recommendation from someone that we trust. So happy to help on those fronts as well. But yeah, anywhere in North and South Carolina, we can handle that closing, and would love to help.
Perfect. Great stuff. Well, thank you all so much for attending, Clinton. Thank you so much for the information and for educating us on this. And I think you brought a lot of clarity to this. So again, we will take this recording and we'll put a landing page together, and assuming Clinton signs off on the final product, we'll be sure to get that link out to certainly everyone that's attended and everyone that registered for this. And any final thoughts, Clinton, before we sign off here?
No, I just thank you again, and thanks everyone for listening. Like I said, feel free to reach out. I think that it's going to be a good market in 2019, and there's still a lot of things to kind of dive into, and that you all can get into that can be a very, very good investment and in regards to real estate. So I hope to hear from some of you all, and look forward to that. Thanks again, Sean.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Clinton. Thank you all, and have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you at a webinar or a live event soon here. Thanks so much.